Hello, everybody. So it's been a while since I've been on this channel and recorded anything, and there's a couple reasons for that. The first one is that this is not my main channel. I created this channel simply to do what I said I was going to do, which is I just needed to talk and explain, get some recovery for myself. And this is one of the things I've learned to do is to talk about it. And so that's why I started that, because I was in so much pain and I was so damaged that I needed to do something for my own recovery. So that's how I started, why I started this channel. I haven't been back because my channel is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. That's where all of my effort has been. The other reason is that um, I think I've gained some recovery in this. I don't feel anything like I did. I'm really happy in my life again. I'm really empowered in my life, and I've got good boundaries again, and I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm living where I want to live, and my life has gotten much better since then. And the reason for that is because I've been doing the work. So bear in mind that I've got a lot of tools. I've been in 12 step groups for um, almost 40 years. So I've got a lot of tools to work through these kinds of things. And so I've been doing that. And I went to Codependence Anonymous for a little while and was able to sort of retool the 12 steps as I've used them and retooled them for, my codependence. And I was able to do a fourth step on my relationship with this woman. And so, I've been, as I said, in 12 step groups for almost 40 years, been in therapy for 20 plus years. And I myself am a teacher and a healer and a counselor, and I've done all kinds of spiritual work. So I've got tons of tools, is the bottom line. And the reason why I'm mentioning this isn't to brag, but it's because there are people in here who, they're on this channel and they haven't found that recovery yet. They're still in a lot of pain. And I totally relate. And it's because if you spend time with a borderline, what's going to happen is you're going to lose your identity. You will lose your identity. You will lose your power. You will lose your, just knowing who you are and where you're going in life and what the meaning of your life is. And that's a result of their projection onto you. The way that they're going to deal with you is they're going to project onto you their internal experience of their self. And that is they have zero identity, and they're still living in that hell of, not getting any love or attention or anything. And so the fear of abandonment is, it's on the level of a mental illness. They're quite mentally ill, and they do live in a tremendous hell. And they are going to elicit in you the feelings that they live with all the time, which is that you have no value, that you have no worth, and they're going to abandon you. They can't help it. They're going to abandon you. And so, if you stayed with them for years, then that means there's going to be years of them, coming back to you, pulling you in, and then tearing you to pieces, and then pulling you in. And pretty soon there's going to be nothing left. And so if you're out of the relationship, it's probably because there's nothing left of you for them to consume. And so what do? You've got to rebuild all of that. You got to rebuild your identity. And I'm lucky. I've got all of these tools, and I've got a lot of recovery. I mean, I grew up in a dysfunctional home with an alcoholic father, a passive aggressive, overprotective, codependent mother who herself probably, definitely, not probably, definitely had borderline tendencies for sure. I had a brother who I think is, he himself is bordering on narcissism, extremely abusive. And so I was a prime candidate for a borderline, and I had just gone through the death of my life partner who really did love me and really was wonderful. So I had all this emptiness inside of me. So, um, that's how I ended up with a borderline. But the reason why I'm doing so great now is because I've done the work. I've done my inventory and 12-step work, and talked to therapists, and done all the work to get myself back where I was, and I'm feeling better than I was before, actually. So if you've been in a relationship with a borderline and it's been months or years since the relationship, and you probably have had it worse than I did, because luckily I had the ability to put down some boundaries, which was eventually what destroyed the relationship. She couldn't tolerate the boundaries that I set, which was, if you want me in your life, you're going to have to go see a therapist about borderline personality disorder. And she was unwilling to do that. And so she destroyed the relationship beyond repair because of that. So I was lucky. Had I not had at least that within me, enough, training and tools within me to do that, I might still be in it with her, and I might still, who knows how horrible it would be for me. But that's my point. The reason why I believe I'm in a state of recovery is because of all the tools that I have, that I've learned. If you have come out, or if you are in a relationship with a borderline, you're going to need to get help. And because what will happen is, after they've consumed you and tossed you aside, and after it's final and they've moved on to somebody else, then you're still going to be left with this broken, fragmented aspect of yourself. And it's probably unlikely that you will come back together. The damage that you've experienced, the trauma that you've experienced, is extreme. It's one of it definitely, for me, I would say that the abuse that I experienced with the borderline was the most damaging abuse I've ever experienced, and that's coming from what I just said: alcoholic father, codependent mother, abusive older brother. Even after that, the abuse that I experienced in the span of 3 or 4 months was more intense and more traumatic than anything I'd experienced from them. And so I went as hard into my recovery as I did into the relationship, and I think that's why I'm where I'm at now. So if you're still feeling broken, months or years later, you're still feeling pain, you still wake up thinking about them, you still go to sleep dreaming about them, and you still feel like, how am I ever going to get my life back on track? Well, you need to get some help. So I strongly recommend going to Codependence Anonymous and working the program. If you can't find a meeting to go to, there's online places. I also recommend going and seeing a therapist who knows how to treat, codependency, and acknowledge that you are codependent. So let me address another request. Somebody requested on this channel that I make a video saying why it's so difficult in the beginning to recognize that they are borderline, because they're so charming and they're so intelligent, and so persuasive, and all of that. And unfortunately, I'm not going to make a video about that, because there's an assumption in that question, which is that you couldn't have seen it coming. And because they were so charming and so seemingly intelligent and communicative and all of that, that prevented you from seeing the truth about them. But that's not accurate, because I know from my experience that there were no shortage of warning signs. There were big red flags all the way through the relationship, even in the beginning. But because I was codependent, and because I was in pain, and because there was an emptiness in me, and because she was presenting herself as the person who was going to meet those needs, I pushed aside all of the red flags and just went right into it. I projected onto her, um, what I thought I wanted to see. And of course, there's the other things associated with being a codependent, which is, you make yourself the martyr and you chase after broken people, and you're wanting on an unconscious level to re-experience the abuse that you went through, as a child, the emotional, abandonment or whatever it is that you experienced. So all of that was in play. And the truth is that if you're not codependent, number one, they're not going to be attracted to you because they're not going to see something they can, experience their issues with. They're not consciously doing it. They're not looking. They're not like a full-on narcissist who's looking for a victim they can, chew apart. They just are. They're looking for love, and you seem to give off the feeling that they want, but what they don't realize is that they're attracted to your codependence, and what they do on an unconscious level is they want to consume you and toss you aside. Um, if I'm sorry, my friend, if you saw them as being charming and disarming and intelligent and beautiful and wonderful, that was your projection. And if you're really honest with yourself, from the very first time you met them, there were red flags that came up. Because somebody who isn't codependent is going to go, there's something off with that person. They're either going to be creeped out, or they're going to say no. They're going to be able to see, wow, what that person just said is, they're going to be able to see that something's not right. And I could go into it, but the truth is that the red flags were just insanely huge. And if I were to, I remember when I was thinking about talking to my therapist about this woman that I had just met, and I was altering the description of her so that, because I knew if I had said, well, she did this and she said that he would have said, hang on, that doesn't sound right. So I was omitting certain parts of the story to tell him how wonderful she was. And, looking back on it, now I'm realizing that I did that. So I knew from the beginning. And whoever said that, make a video about why they're so charming and so hard to detect in the beginning. There's no doubt in my mind that the red flags were there. You were just choosing not to see them from your own projection and your own codependence. Another comment I've seen numerous times, people, are responding and saying, a lot of the things you've said are true, but some of them don't apply to me. And they've said, because I am an empath. And they'll go on about how being an empath means that, they love and they give, and, they're attracted to broken people. And that's not because they're codependent. It's because of this spiritual gift they have, and this uncontrollable, drive to seek out the wounded and to heal them. Now, if that's you and you say that you're not codependent, you're an empath, I'm an empath. I'm a spiritual teacher. So I totally understand that. But being an empath does not mean that you lose your ability to keep your boundaries. So if you're saying that because you're an empath, you're incapable of having safe boundaries with people, then I gotta call bullshit on that. And the truth of the matter is that the rest of us, when we hear you say, no, I'm not codependent, it's because I'm an empath and I just feel so much and I give, and the rest of us are just seeing, big red, neon sign that says codependent, like chronically codependent. So I got to call bullshit on that. If you're with a borderline, it's because you're codependent and you have, at the very least, an emotional illness. That you have your own insanity, you have your own projection, and you're going to need to get help. So I recommend everybody, if you've been in a relationship or are in a relationship with a borderline, Or even if you think they're borderline, get yourself to Codependence Anonymous and work those steps. Get yourself into therapy, because otherwise you're going to end up just being chewed to pieces and spit out. And for some of you, it'll take years before that happens. Or even worse, you'll start a family and have kids. And by the time you're out of the relationship, you'll be so damaged that, like a lot of people here, they spend months and months and years still damaged. The relationship damaged them so badly that they can't function. They don't have hope. They don't feel love again. Their life's a mess. So I'm not feeling any of those things, and that's because I did the work, and because I had, thankfully enough, I had almost 40 years of experience and tools to to when I know I'm in my insanity, when I'm in my diseases, I have these tools that I can recover from. If you don't have those, I can imagine it would be extremely, extremely difficult to get any recovery. So anyway, just wanted to check in with you guys. I don't know how, if I'm going to be here. Maybe I'll come back and make some more videos. But the one thing is, I can tell you that I look back on her now and I see her totally differently. I don't, and I look back on the relationship and I say without any like intense emotional, pain or angst, I can say, yep, that was a very sick relationship, and she was very ill. She was insane, in fact. And whatever I thought was happening was all my delusion, and because the truth is what we feed off of is when they are um, idealizing us, we feed off of that and we forget. But a sane person, if they go through one idealization period followed by, and then they split. If a normal person goes through one split, they're like, there's something really wrong with this person, and they leave. In fact, I'm thinking about a relationship with a girl that I had, I don't know, probably 20 years ago. Looking back on it, I think she was probably borderline, at the very least, had very strong borderline tendencies. And, she, unlike the girl I was with, she wasn't a quiet borderline. She like exploded. And so she exploded on me once, and that was enough. I said, we're done. I'm never, you never get to do that to me. And you've done it once, and once is all you get. You only get one chance with me with that kind of abuse, yelling and screaming and, like she was screaming in my face, and it was like if you were there, you would have seen my hair being blown back with how intense her screaming was. So that was, at least in that instance, I had enough to know, man, there's nothing here. I'm out. So if you keep going back, that means that there's something broken within you. And the point is that, to heal, you've got to acknowledge that there's something broken in you and you need help. If you don't do that, I can't imagine, after going through that kind of abuse, of being able to put yourself back together. I think, I totally understand why some of you for months and for years still are in pain and you're broken. And I'm willing to bet it's because you're not finding the tools that you need to heal yourself. Go to Codependence Anonymous, go to therapy, and if you want, watch my channel because I do a lot of work to help people find their power again. So that's it. Thanks for everybody, and I'm really grateful that this this channel is helpful to people who are recovering from having escaped a borderline, and I wish you all the best. So I'll probably be back, but it may be a while. Anyway, see you later.